When you scroll through YouTube, something fascinating happens before you even realize it. Your brain starts making decisions faster than you can think, scanning, comparing, rejecting, and choosing. And all of that happens in less than 2 seconds. In that moment, one small rectangle decides whether your video lives or dies: the thumbnail. It's easy to think thumbnails are just decoration, but they're actually psychological triggers. They're designed to speak directly to the oldest part of your brain, the part that decides what's worth your attention and what's not. Before you even read a title or look at the channel name, your eyes are pulled toward emotion, color, and contrast. That's the real power of a thumbnail. It doesn't just get seen, it gets felt. Think about how your eyes move across a screen. They're not looking for information, they're looking for emotion. A face that looks shocked, excited, scared, or curious instantly tells your brain that something interesting is happening. Humans are hardwired to read faces. It's a survival instinct. Long before YouTube existed, our ancestors scanned faces to detect danger or connection. Today, that same reflex decides which video gets your click. Color also plays a secret role. Bright, contrasting colors like red, yellow, and cyan naturally attract attention because they don't occur together often in nature. That's why so many thumbnails use these shades. They activate a part of the brain called the visual cortex, which processes novelty and alertness. Even if you don't consciously notice it, your eyes pause just a little longer when something colorful appears against a dull background. But the real trick isn't just being bright or expressive, it's clarity. The best thumbnails don't try to tell you everything. They tell you just enough to make your brain ask a question. Curiosity is the hook that pulls you in. If your thumbnail answers the question before the viewer even clicks, it loses power. That's why mystery, tension, or incomplete information are such effective tools. They leave a gap that the brain desperately wants to close by clicking. Psychologists call this the information gap theory. Your brain gets a small burst of discomfort when something feels incomplete. Thumbnails that hint at something, like, "You won't believe what happened," or a shocked expression beside a strange object, exploit that discomfort in a clever way. The viewer doesn't consciously think, "I want to know more." Their brain simply pushes them to resolve the uncertainty. This is where storytelling begins before the video even starts. A strong thumbnail is the first frame of your story. It sets the tone, the energy, and the emotional promise. If your video is a mystery, the thumbnail should look intriguing. If it's educational, it should look clear and trustworthy. If it's funny, it should look light and expressive. The alignment between the thumbnail's emotion and the video's content builds trust with the audience over time. Creators often underestimate this. They focus on making a great video and treat the thumbnail as an afterthought. But in truth, thumbnails are like movie posters. They sell the story before anyone presses play. The algorithm may push your video to millions of people, but if your thumbnail doesn't make them stop scrolling, it doesn't matter how good the video is. In the digital world, attention is currency, and thumbnails are the handshake that earns it. There's also a deeper layer: familiarity. Over time, your viewers begin to recognize your visual style. That's why successful creators often use consistent thumbnail colors, fonts, or facial framing. It's not just branding, it's cognitive comfort. When people subconsciously recognize your thumbnail style, their brain already feels safe clicking it. You're no longer a stranger in the sea of content. You're a familiar voice. So, when you think about thumbnails, don't think of them as a static image. Think of them as a conversation between your content and the human brain. They whisper, they tease, they invite. And in those 2 seconds before someone decides whether to click, they hold more power than any title, keyword, or algorithm ever could. Every time you scroll through YouTube, your eyes flicker across dozens of faces, colors, and shapes. But there's one detail your brain pays the most attention to: faces. It doesn't matter if the thumbnail shows a celebrity, a stranger, or even an animated character. As soon as the human face appears, your brain stops scanning and starts interpreting. It's automatic. In fact, neuroscientists have found that the human brain can recognize and react to a face in less than 100 milliseconds. That's faster than you can blink. This happens because of something deep within our biology. Humans are social creatures. Long before we had words, we communicated through expressions: fear, joy, anger, surprise. Our survival depended on reading those emotions instantly. Today, even though we're not running from predators or hunting for food, our brains still use the same wiring to decide what's important. A thumbnail with a clear emotion instantly taps into that ancient system. If a person in the thumbnail looks shocked, our brain asks, what surprised them? If they're laughing, we want to know what's funny. If they look scared, we want to know what happened. The face becomes a story trigger, a small piece of emotional context that pulls you into curiosity. That's why thumbnails showing genuine emotion usually outperform those with flat or expressionless faces. Emotion equals energy, and energy equals attention. But there's a catch. Not all emotions work the same way. Some create curiosity, while others create avoidance. For example, extreme anger or sadness can turn viewers away unless it matches the video's tone. On the other hand, expressions like surprise, excitement, or confusion tend to perform best because they suggest something interesting is happening. The viewer feels like they're about to witness a moment worth experiencing. What's fascinating is that the human brain doesn't even need to see a full face to feel emotion. Slight cues, raised eyebrows, widened eyes, and open mouth, are enough to convey intensity. That's why many YouTubers exaggerate their expressions. It's not overacting, it's neuroscience. When the viewer's brain detects emotion, it triggers a small release of dopamine, signaling that something engaging might follow. That tiny chemical burst increases the chance of a click. The direction of the gaze also matters more than most people realize. When the person in the thumbnail is looking at the viewer, it feels personal, like they're communicating directly. When they're looking toward something else in the thumbnail, it creates a story. Your eyes instinctively follow theirs to see what they're reacting to. This is called gaze cueing, a well-studied psychological phenomenon that guides human attention naturally. Clever thumbnails use it to lead the viewer's eye exactly where they want it to go. Then there's the concept of emotional contrast. When you combine a strong facial expression with something visually unexpected, a strange object, bold color, or unusual background, the contrast creates tension. Our brains hate uncertainty. We want to resolve it, to understand what's happening. That's when curiosity transforms into a click. Creators who understand this use faces not just as decoration, but as storytelling tools. Each expression, each direction of the eyes, each bit of color is part of an emotional narrative. Even professional marketers use this same trick. Every poster, magazine cover, or ad featuring a face follows the same rule. Emotion first, context second. Because emotion hooks you faster than logic ever could. But emotion without honesty fails. The modern viewer can spot a fake expression instantly. If the thumbnail promises drama but the video delivers none, the viewer feels tricked. The algorithm notices that drop in satisfaction, lower watch time, lower retention, and stops recommending it. So, the secret isn't exaggeration alone, it's emotional truthfulness. You can heighten the emotion, but it must match what your video genuinely delivers. Every face in a thumbnail is a silent storyteller. It whispers something to the viewer before they ever press play. It says, "I felt something you want to feel too." That's what great thumbnails do. They don't just attract attention, they build connection. They remind us that, even in a sea of digital noise, we still click for the same reason humans always have, because we want to feel something real. If faces are the emotional hook of a thumbnail, then color is the invisible magnet that pulls your eyes toward it. Before you can even process what a thumbnail shows, your brain has already responded to its colors. They don't just decorate, they communicate. They set a mood, send a signal, and tell your subconscious how to feel. Every shade carries a hidden psychological message, and YouTube creators who understand this can make their videos stand out before a single word is read. Imagine scrolling through a sea of videos. Most are filled with muted tones or cluttered visuals. Then suddenly one pops, bright red, electric yellow, or neon blue. Your brain pauses for half a second, just long enough to register something new. That pause is gold in the digital world. Color contrast grabs attention because our visual system evolved to notice difference. In nature, bright or unnatural colors often signaled importance. Danger, fruit, fire. Our survival depended on spotting them. Online, the same rule applies. The thumbnail that breaks the pattern wins the click. But color isn't only about brightness, it's about emotion. Red is urgency. It screams intensity, action, excitement, or even danger. That's why so many viral thumbnails include red outlines or accents. Yellow is warmth and optimism. It feels energetic, playful, and full of life. Blue is trust, calmness, and clarity, the reason so many tech channels and educational creators use it. Green often represents peace, balance, or freshness. And purple? It carries mystery and creativity, giving content a slightly magical or imaginative tone. What makes color powerful in thumbnails is not one color alone, but the relationship between them. Creators who understand color theory use contrast to build hierarchy, making one element pop while keeping others subtle. For instance, pairing a bold red text with a cool blue background directs your eyes straight to the words. A splash of yellow near a neutral scene signals focus. Even grayscale or dark tone thumbnails can dominate the feed when one vivid color breaks the calm. Our emotional reaction to color also changes based on context. A red thumbnail about food feels appetizing. A red thumbnail about fear feels alarming. The color doesn't carry meaning on its own. It borrows it from the story it's placed in. That's why great creators test color schemes until the emotion matches the message. A good thumbnail feels right before you even know why. There's also a psychological concept called color memory. Over time, your audience begins to associate specific colors with your channel. Think of it as visual branding burned into their subconscious. When they see a certain hue combination, maybe your signature teal and orange or your warm beige and red tones, their brain recognizes you instantly. That sense of familiarity builds trust and anticipation. They don't have to read your name, they just know it's your video. Interestingly, different colors also influence click behavior differently depending on what people are searching for. Educational content tends to perform better with cooler, calmer tones like blue and white because they signal reliability and professionalism. Entertainment and reaction videos thrive on high contrast, energetic palettes, red, yellow, black, because they promise excitement. So, the smartest creators don't chase trends. They use color intentionally to set expectations before the video even begins. But there's a fine balance. Too much saturation can feel aggressive or fake, while too little can disappear into the background. The goal is to find harmony, enough contrast to attract, but enough restraint to maintain credibility. The best thumbnails don't shout. They vibrate with the right emotion. They look alive. And then there's something even subtler, the color of the human skin tone in the thumbnail. Research shows that our eyes are naturally drawn to warm tones like skin against cooler backdrops. That's why even small, cropped faces can stand out dramatically on a cold-colored background. The warmth of life contrasts beautifully against the digital chill of blue or gray. It's not an accident, it's human biology at play. Color is emotion before thought. It's how your thumbnail speaks to the viewer's subconscious, whispering, "This one feels right." Long before they decide if the topic interests them, the mood of the colors decides if it deserves their time. That's the quiet magic of color psychology. You're not just painting pixels. You're painting emotions that live inside the human eye. Every thumbnail is a tiny window into a bigger story. But what separates a random image from one that stops you mid-scroll is not luck. It's composition. The way elements are placed inside that small rectangle determines whether your eye glides smoothly across or gets lost in chaos. Good composition feels invisible. You don't notice it working, but your brain does. It gently guides your attention, almost like a silent hand saying, "Look here first, then there." Think of your thumbnail like a movie still, a frozen frame that captures not the whole plot but the essence of it. In just a glance, it must tell you what kind of story this is and why it matters. That's where layout comes in. When everything is placed with intention, the face, the object, the text, the color balance, your eye follows a natural path. And that path creates emotional rhythm. The human eye doesn't move randomly. It follows patterns that designers have studied for decades. One of the most powerful is called the rule of thirds. Imagine your thumbnail divided by 2 vertical and 2 horizontal lines, forming 9 equal boxes. The human eye is instinctively drawn to the points where those lines intersect. That's where you should place the most important parts, the emotion on a face, the key object, or the central word. It's like setting a visual trap for curiosity. But beyond placement, direction matters. Humans subconsciously follow lines and gaze cues. If someone in the thumbnail looks towards something, your eyes instantly follow theirs. This trick, called directional flow, helps lead viewers to secondary elements like text or visuals. You're not just showing an image, you're choreographing a moment. Every arrow, tilt, and angle plays a part in the dance of attention. Some creators fill every inch of their thumbnails with color, faces, and text, thinking more equals better. But clutter kills clarity. When too much happens at once, the viewer's brain can't decide where to look, so it decides not to look at all. The strongest thumbnails often have space. Empty areas or negative space give the eyes a place to rest. It's the quiet between notes that makes the music powerful. Simplicity creates focus. There's also a deep psychological comfort in balance. Our brains love symmetry. It signals order and stability. But perfect symmetry can feel boring. The trick is visual balance, not mathematical symmetry. A large element on one side can be balanced by a smaller but brighter element on the other. A face on one side and bold text on the other feels complete because the visual weight evens out. Designers think in terms of weight, not size. Movement is another hidden tool. Even in a still image, lines, gestures, or shapes can suggest motion. A face leaning forward, a hand pointing, or tilted text adds energy. It tells your brain that something is happening, an action, a reaction, a story unfolding. Motion creates tension, and tension creates curiosity. You're not just designing a layout, you're building a tiny world with invisible gravity. One mistake many creators make is designing thumbnails like posters. They look great full screen but lose all power when shrunk to mobile size. Remember, most viewers see your thumbnail on a phone smaller than your thumb. That means every detail must work at a glance. Ask yourself, can a stranger understand the feeling of this image in less than 1 second? If not, it's too complex. Simplicity wins on small screens. Good composition also uses something called visual hierarchy. Not all elements deserve equal attention. There's always a star, one clear focus point that dominates. Maybe it's the expression, the object, or a single word. The rest of the elements should support it, not compete. When every part tries to be the main character, the story collapses. When one leads and the others follow, the image feels purposeful. What makes great composition so powerful is that it mirrors how humans experience the world. We don't see everything at once. We focus, then wander, then return. A well-balanced thumbnail mimics that rhythm. It captures you with one strong idea, then rewards you with subtle details. It doesn't yell, it whispers confidently. In the end, composition is storytelling without words. It's how creators make viewers feel safe enough to stop and curious enough to click. Every line, shape, and shadow works together to tell one silent promise. This video will make your time worth it. Text in a YouTube thumbnail is like a whisper that turns into a promise. In just 2 or 3 words, it must tell you what the video feels like, not just what it's about. It's not there to explain. It's there to provoke emotion, to spark curiosity, to make the viewer think, I need to see this. And yet, behind those few words lies an entire science. A mix of psychology, design, and storytelling that makes some thumbnails impossible to ignore. Most people assume that thumbnails with words simply exist to summarize. But the truth is, the best text doesn't describe, it teases. It's not how to grow on YouTube, it's the trick no one told you. Not morning routine tips, but what changed my mornings forever. The first sounds like information, the second sounds like a secret. The algorithm rewards curiosity because curiosity drives clicks. Humans are wired to close open loops. When something feels incomplete, our brains crave resolution. A good thumbnail text opens that loop. But it's not just what you say, it's how you say it. The font itself carries personality. Fonts speak silently. Bold, thick typefaces feel confident and strong, perfect for tech, adventure, or opinion-based videos. Clean, modern fonts feel trustworthy, great for education or tutorials. Handwritten or script fonts feel personal, emotional, or creative, perfect for storytelling or lifestyle content. Choosing a font is like casting a voice for your video. It tells the viewer what kind of energy to expect before they even read the words. Size matters too. YouTube thumbnails appear tiny on mobile screens, so every letter must scream clarity. If the text can't be read at a glance, it's wasted. That's why professional creators often use short phrases, usually 3 to 5 words max. Too much text looks like a chore. Too little loses meaning. The sweet spot is that balance where the viewer's eye can read everything in one glance. No effort, just instant understanding. Then comes contrast, the battle between visibility and beauty. Your words might be powerful, but if they blend into the background, they vanish. That's why most great thumbnails use text overlays with shadows, borders, or color blocking. The goal isn't to decorate but to separate the words from the noise. White or yellow text over dark backgrounds, black text on bright ones. It's about giving words a voice that cuts through chaos. There's a subtle trick in how creators place their words. The human eye reads from left to right, top to bottom. If your face or main object sits on one side, placing text on the opposite side creates balance and harmony. It feels comfortable, natural. Some creators even use the direction of their subject's gaze to point toward the text. A silent nudge guiding your attention exactly where they want it. Emotion hides in word choice too. Action words like revealed, exposed, finally, or truth activate urgency. Emotional words like feel, why, can't, or secret activate curiosity. The best thumbnail texts don't just inform, they invite participation. They make the viewer part of the mystery. It's not just the science of sleep, it's why you wake up tired. One talks at you, the other talks with you. And yet, text can also hurt if misused. Overpromising kills trust. Clickbait may bring the first click, but it destroys the second. When viewers feel tricked, retention drops, and the algorithm notices. The real art of thumbnail text isn't exaggeration, it's alignment. The promise on the image must match the truth in the video. It should amplify your message, not mask it. Sometimes the strongest move is silence. Many creators remove text altogether once their face or color branding becomes recognizable. Their image speaks louder than words. But in most cases, a few well-placed words act like emotional signposts. They tell the viewer what kind of journey this video will take them on. In the end, text in a thumbnail isn't about design, it's about conversation. It's your first sentence to the viewer before you've said a single word aloud. It's what stops their scroll and makes them listen for a moment. And in that tiny pause, you either win their curiosity or lose it forever. Every click on YouTube starts with a tiny spark inside the human brain, curiosity. That invisible pull that makes you stop scrolling, hover for a second, and think, wait, what's going on here? You might not realize it, but every powerful thumbnail is designed to ignite that spark using deep psychological triggers that date back to how humans have always reacted to stories, emotion, and mystery. It's not manipulation, it's connection. The best creators don't trick you, they simply understand how your attention works. Curiosity is the most powerful force behind a click. It's what psychologists call a cognitive itch. When your brain encounters something it doesn't fully understand but feels close to knowing, it becomes uncomfortable. It needs closure. That's why the best thumbnails never give away everything. They show enough to intrigue but hold back just enough to leave a question open. A face looking shocked but not showing why. A strange image with no explanation. A phrase like "this changed everything" without saying what this is. That missing piece is what drives you to click, to scratch the itch. Then there's the trigger of emotion. Humans don't remember logic. We remember feelings. A thumbnail that makes you feel something, whether it's excitement, confusion, nostalgia, or even mild fear, stands out against dozens of neutral ones. Emotion doesn't have to be extreme, it just has to be real. When a creator's expression feels genuine, when the image captures a moment of truth, our brains recognize authenticity instantly. We lean toward it because we crave human connection even through pixels. Another hidden force is what marketers call FOMO, the fear of missing out. Thumbnails that suggest something exclusive, urgent, or limited trigger this instinct automatically. Titles and visuals that say "don't make this mistake" before it's too late, or "you won't believe this update," make your brain feel like it's standing at a closing door. You have to click before it shuts. But again, it's not about deception, it's about urgency. A well-designed thumbnail uses that tension ethically, offering real value behind the promise. There's also something called social proof energy. Humans are naturally drawn to what others are paying attention to. If a thumbnail feels popular, your brain interprets it as worth your time. This is why some thumbnails include visible metrics, reaction faces, or even screenshots that look like a trending moment. They hint at belonging, that you're about to join a conversation everyone else is already having. That quiet sense of inclusion builds instant trust. Storytelling tension plays a huge role too. Every thumbnail that performs well tells a story, not with words but with emotion and visual contrast. Imagine a man holding a broken trophy, a woman looking shocked at her phone, or a split screen of before and after. Your brain immediately builds a story. What happened? Why is she surprised? How did that break? You subconsciously begin creating a narrative in your head, and the only way to finish it is to click. It's the same structure used in movies and novels, just compressed into one frozen moment. Contrast is another psychological magnet. The human brain pays more attention to differences. Dark versus light, big versus small, calm versus chaos. That's why so many thumbnails use opposing elements. Happiness beside sadness, success beside failure, calmness beside tension. The conflict between emotions catches your attention faster than anything else. Your brain wants to resolve it, to make sense of the imbalance. Even color and text choices feed these triggers. Red increases urgency, yellow sparks optimism, blue builds trust. When used in harmony with emotional cues, they strengthen the overall pull. A single word like truth, why, or secret taps into the curiosity and vulnerability buried in all of us. We want to know what's hidden. We want to learn what we might be missing. But there's a thin line between authentic intrigue and manipulation. The thumbnails that stand the test of time don't just chase attention, they respect it. They promise mystery and deliver meaning. Viewers might click once for shock, but they stay for truth. The most powerful thumbnails don't just grab eyes, they build loyalty. Every great creator eventually learns that thumbnails are less about gaming the algorithm and more about understanding human emotion. Behind every click is a heartbeat, a moment when curiosity, emotion, and trust align. The algorithm may measure watch time, but what it's really tracking is how well you make people feel. And the thumbnail is where that connection begins. When you upload a video to YouTube, it doesn't just disappear into the internet. It enters a silent battlefield where millions of videos compete for the same few seconds of human attention. And at the center of that battle is one small but mighty detail: the thumbnail. It's not just an image, it's data. YouTube's algorithm doesn't see your thumbnail the way you do. It reads it, tests it, and measures how people respond to it. The algorithm doesn't make emotional choices. People do. But the algorithm watches those choices closely. Every time someone sees your thumbnail, it notes how many decide to click. That's your click-through rate, or CTR. It's the first impression score, a way of telling the system, did this image make people care enough to stop? But CTR alone doesn't guarantee success. The algorithm has learned that not all clicks are equal. Some thumbnails promise too much and deliver too little. Those videos get abandoned quickly. That's where the real test begins: watch time and satisfaction. When someone clicks your thumbnail, YouTube watches how long they stay. If they drop off within seconds, that sends a signal that the promise wasn't kept. If they stay, rewatch, or even scroll through your channel afterward, it tells the system that your video delivered value. So, in a way, your thumbnail's job isn't just to attract. It's to attract the right viewer. The one who will stay long enough to prove your video was worth it. What most creators don't realize is that YouTube runs small experiments constantly. When you post a new video, it shows your thumbnail to a small group of viewers first, people who might like your content based on history. Then it watches the data: who clicks, who stays, and who doesn't. If your video performs well in that test, YouTube expands the audience. If it doesn't, your reach shrinks quietly. The thumbnail becomes your first handshake with the algorithm, your silent pitch to prove your content deserves exposure. Even subtle details like color and composition affect this data loop. High contrast, emotionally clear thumbnails tend to attract clicks faster. But if they attract the wrong audience, people expecting drama when the video is calm or humor when it's serious, retention plummets. YouTube sees that mismatch and adjusts. The algorithm isn't punishing you, it's optimizing for the viewers who truly connect. Then comes something called satisfaction signals. These aren't just about watch time, they include likes, comments, shares, and even whether someone lets your video play to the end. YouTube surveys viewers too, asking how they felt about what they watched. That human feedback loops back into the system. A thumbnail that builds curiosity but leads to genuine satisfaction becomes the perfect formula. It earns trust, both from viewers and the machine that amplifies them. YouTube's recommendation system is like a constantly evolving map of human emotion. It doesn't care about the prettiest thumbnail, it cares about what works. Over time, it learns your channel's personality. It knows which faces, colors, and emotions your audience responds to. It learns what kind of stories you tell best. That's why consistency matters. Your thumbnail should not only attract attention but also build identity. When viewers can recognize your content instantly, your click-through rate rises naturally because trust replaces guesswork. In a way, the algorithm is just a mirror reflecting human behavior. Every click, every second watched, every choice feeds it. It's learning what we desire, what excites us, what keeps us watching at 2 a.m. And your thumbnail, that small, frozen image, is the language you use to speak to both humans and the machine at once. The secret isn't to chase the algorithm, it's to understand the people behind it. When you create thumbnails that genuinely connect, ones that reflect real emotion, clear storytelling, and honest curiosity, the algorithm follows. It's not the machine you're convincing. It's the millions of human eyes behind every screen. In the end, the thumbnail isn't just a doorway to a video, it's a conversation starter with the world. It asks one simple question: do you want to feel something new? And when you design it right, the answer is almost always yes.